Let's talk about issues pertaining to development. We have with us two as-well individuals, Kimemia, who is the regional head of IFC Eastern Africa. I hope I got that correctly. It's good to see you. Chairman, good to see you.
Good to be back.
Kind of just came out, you know. Edwin Macharia, he's a regional head, regional head Dalberg.
Yes.
Basically, first of all, let's talk about two things. Okay, many, but let's start with G20 and first of all, what is G20 and what is the G20 challenge?
Yeah. So the G20 is the group of 20, which are the 20 largest economies of the world. So they have a meeting annually to discuss what are critical issues that affect the economy of the world.
Right.
And so as part of that, in the last meeting, they decided, so let me step back. So it comes from a recognition that business actually plays a critical role in development.
Right.
And business plays a critical role in terms of providing goods and services to those people who are considered at the base of the pyramid, people, you know, poor people, essentially. And because that, you know, that gap has typically been left to governments and donors to fill, or at least the assumption that it's only governments and donors who can fill that role. But we've actually seen, at least in the developing world, a real, you know, that businesses are providing are using different models to provide goods and services to those individuals. Right. So the G20 challenge essentially says, let's step back and try and identify innovative models of people who are serving people at the poor. And this is both as producers of inputs, so a small-scale farmer, somebody with dairy cows, and link them to a larger supply chain, or provides goods and services to them. So be it telecom services, be it being able to buy margarine in small sachets, so you can afford it at 5 bob rather than having to buy the 500 shilling tin. Those kind of innovations. There's a real hunger globally to understand what those models look like and really push businesses to say, how can they continue filling this gap?
I see what you mean.
So that's what the G20 did, and so the G20 challenge is then to identify those kinds of businesses globally.
I see what you mean. Is it specific for Africa, or now that the two of you are sitting here, it's specific for Kenya? And are you saying that the bottom of the pyramid can afford you know, and require goods and services at a much higher sort of potential? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I think what we found as IFC, and maybe if you let me just take a step back.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's IFC and your involvement in this.
Sure, yeah. So we're the International Finance Corporation. It's part of the World Bank Group.
Yes.
The part of the World Bank that lends to the private sector. And we have a double bottom line. So we're a commercial institution that lends money to viable businesses, but it's not just looking at their financial viability, but also what social returns are we getting from these projects. And what we've been pushed to more, and we recognize as important, is not just to assume that if you finance a big hydropower project, it's going to trickle down and everybody's going to benefit from it. Now we are actually recognizing that there are 4 billion people in this world who are considered base of the pyramid. And actually these are people that actually there is economic activity taking place there, and they are actually a source of business as well as consumers. And what we're now looking at through the G20, you know, challenges such as this, is to see what kind of innovative business models are coming out that we as an institution can finance, and we can add that to our financing models. So, so it is a trend that we're seeing now. We're developing ways also to measure how far we're going and are we reaching these, you know, the people at the base of the pyramid.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And to quickly add, I think just to also, it is a global competition.
Yes.
Right? And so, you know, part of my, you know, because we are participating in this, we want to make sure that we have strong participation from people within Kenya and the region. Right? So that's part of the reason we had the conversation yesterday.
Let me ask you, and also just to know what Dalberg exactly does specifically in Africa. I know you're based here in you know, I guess, but let me ask, in the bigger picture, what's your role in as far as this is concerned? And if you can also tell why so much focus now in Africa. We know it's been growing. We had the Danish Minister for Development and Cooperation talking about, you know, a sizable growth in Africa, so huge attention in as far as investing in Africa.
Exactly.
But why?
So Dalberg is a strategy consulting firm. So we have 11 offices globally. On the continent, we have a presence in Johannesburg, Nairobi, and Dakar.
Right.
And so as part of that, we provide strategic advice to a range of partners, including public sector governments, bilateral, multilateral donors, the bank, the IFC, do quite a bit of work with the social sector, so Gates Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, NGOs, AGRA, those kind of players. And the third critical leg of our work is with the private sector. And there it's focusing on how does the private sector continue deepening its ability to serve the needs of the consumers. And that's both from you know, sourcing inputs from those consumers, because now you're creating wealth and generating income for those individuals, as well as providing goods and services to those individuals because we know they need them. So let me give you a quick example. Right now, I think it's about 80% of people in Kenya use kerosene for lighting. Right? So to see, most people in rural areas use kerosene. But we know that kerosene is probably one of the most toxic forms of energy you can use, especially burning it, right? Because of the fumes that you get, the poor lighting you have. And so that's in some ways holding back not only, from a health perspective, because people get sick and respiratory issues, from, their eyes get weaker and weaker faster, but also from an education perspective, right? You have a second order effect that if you're a child learning with a little kerosene lamp, you can't read well, you get tired quickly and you can't concentrate. But there's, we did some work with the IFC early in 2 years ago that looked at what's the potential, how much money is actually spent on that. And the number was in Africa, it's $10 billion. So there's every year people are spending $10 billion on kerosene.
The bottom of the pyramid is spending $10 billion
every single year on kerosene, candles, poor lighting options. But we know there are things called solar lanterns, right? So where you have a lantern that's charged with a solar panel, those on average will cost, maybe $40, $50 per unit, and they will last anything between 5 to 10 years. So if there's a way you can create a business model that says this $10 billion market now, how do you capture it? By bringing a different kind of product to the people who need it. So they get light, it's cleaner, it's better, it's renewable, so you get all the positive benefits, but the business model for doing that doesn't exist yet. So that's what inclusive growth is about, is saying, how do we bring some of those new models in and say, how do we take them to scale in a way that, has all these positive effects? And so that's what the G20 challenge is about, is how do we identify people who are doing that in an innovative way? And it's not just small companies, it's big companies. So your telcos, right? Safaricom does a lot of business at the base of the pyramid. That's where most of their customers are. That's where most of their retailers and distributors are. They're eligible to apply for this kind of a challenge. And the whole idea is, there'll be 15 winners. They'll be celebrated at the G20 event in Mexico in June. So they will actually get to attend that. It's a global competition. So of course competition is stiff because you're competing against people in South America, people in Europe and other, and Asia and others. So it's a stiff challenge, but I really want to make sure that there are real African models that are highlighted as part of this process.
You're more specifically Eastern Africa, so you obviously have a passion for this small region. You want to kind of root for us to move forward and win that. Talk about the sort of challenges you currently face in as far as, because you mentioned things in terms of legislation, you mentioned things in terms of politics that come into play in terms of encouraging or unlocking the potentials of the BOP. How does IFC then come in there in terms of making sure that everyone has access or has at least room to move in as far as this amazing venture is concerned?
Yeah. And it's interesting because the question you framed was the challenges, but actually the trends are quite positive.
Oh, good.
So, we see contraction of economies in the West.
Right.
And really a lot more focus on investing in emerging markets and in Africa as well. So Africa's growth is sort of estimated at 6%.
6%, yes.
That's really high compared to a number of the other regions in the world. We see a lot of stability now. So countries that were at war are stabilizing now, and they become investment opportunities. We're now quite active now in Burundi, which might not have been the case 5, 6 years ago. Commodity prices are improving, are stabilizing, and so that is encouraging investment in the agribusiness sector. And then also reform, I think opening up, regulatory reform, doing these kinds of lighting Africa, because the regulatory system for in the power sector, in the telecommunication, is opening up to let private players in. And so when we see that, we see opportunities. And so where we step in is to see how we can fund, well, first how we can provide advisory support to help support the generation of these ideas. So with our Lighting Africa program, which is sort of the one that he has touched on, we're seeing how we can help these different manufacturers to test products, help ease the pain of them testing products, see if they'll work in the market, support these customers so that eventually you get these customers that then come, they have the ability to access finance. Maybe